Okay. All right, everybody. This is Aaron Murakami with eMediaPress.com and the Energy Science and Technology Conference. And this is 12:09 p.m. on May 30th, 2020. And we are going to be having our 9th Annual Energy Science and Technology Conference in Hayden, Idaho, July 9th through 12th. Unfortunately, all the seats are sold out. There's no more left. We are limited to half capacity, so there's 75 tickets instead of 150. And at this conference, Eric will be giving two presentations. One is on some heavy-side material, and one is on Fortescue. A lot of people know the name Heaviside, and Eric's presentation is essentially a sequel to some of Heaviside's work. And Fortescue, who is probably lesser known, is very related to Eric Dollard's Versor Algebra 1 and Versor Algebra 2 books. And so essentially Eric's presentation, in a way, is going to kind of be a tutorial on the Versor Algebra system, at least as part of the presentation. If you do want more information about the conference, although it's sold out, is EnergyScienceConference.com. You can register, and in case there are any openings, we will be announcing that in case some people are not able to make it. And also we do plan on having a conference next year in 2021, the first weekend right after 4th of July in the same location, and hopefully it's back to normal where we can have a full house. Eric Dollard's presentations are available through eMediaPress.com. On the homepage, there's a list of presentations from the 2018 and 2019 conference. And in the main menu bar, if you mouse over Home, you'll see a link for Home 2. And if you click that and scroll down, you'll see all the rest of the presentations. The website's in bad need of updating, and we will be working on a new catalog sometime soon. And Eric's own website is ericpdollard.com. That's P for Paul, his middle name, ericpdollard.com. And there's a lot of material in there. You can look through the blog posts. There's free papers and a free videos link on there as well. And EPD Laboratories, Inc. is a 501c3 nonprofit corporation dedicated to the electrical sciences and supporting Eric's work. And it operates solely on donations. And there is a donate link. And if you're able to donate anything either by PayPal or through the mail by check or money order, all the details are there. Anything helps. That keeps the bills paid, helps pay the insurance and utilities and everything else. Hopefully we'll be able to have some funding at some time to really move some of the seismic projects forward. But in the meantime, Eric is focusing on his writing projects, and there could be some other projects coming up where we might be working on. So do you have any announcements before we get started, Eric?
No, not really. We pretty much covered what it is I'm doing.
Okay. So
I got the Heaviside presentation just finished. Now I'm starting on the Fortescue one, and then I do want to point out that this is also going to have a musical component of it. So you might say that both presentations are going to be a bit of a continuation of the power of the ether as related to music and electricity. So it's Handel wrote a piece of music that actually is the Heaviside equation, literally. And Bach wrote a set of pieces of music that are the musical representation of three-phase power with all the so-called Fortescue sequences. So actually, at the end of each presentation, you will hear the mathematics actually work. The process won't be abstract. You'll actually get to hear the interrelationships of all the various phases. So I didn't know exactly if I wanted to do this or not, but actually something I've been wanting to do for a long time, decades as a matter of fact. So that's going to be kind of a new element in the presentations. At the end, there'll be a couple of very powerful pieces of music.
And so the presentation that Eric just mentioned, the power of ether is related to music and electricity. That's available at powerofether.com, and that's ether spelled A-E-T-H-E-R. And I think that was in 2015 at the downtown Eagles Lodge for that presentation. Now today is the 30th, which is exactly, I guess, 28 days after the last call. The last call was 28 days after the one before it. Do you want to explain kind of the significance of the timing of these calls and how it relates?
28 days is one rotation of the sun. So the first hot spot on the sun of the new solar cycle, which now is underway, I decided that would be the 0 degree point. That particular hot spot seemed to come along with the planetary alignment, Saturn and Jupiter, and consequently every one of these presentations, or not presentations, but telephone calls have ended up on Saturn Day, which is very convenient because that's the best time to do these. So we call it Saturday, but it's actually Saturn Day.
Right.
So that particular area went dead, but there's a new one just coming around now, and now the solar activity is starting to kick up. There's not any sunspots yet, but it's I don't know exactly what to call these things. I call them cathode spots on the sun, and they're part of the new solar cycle. So the new solar cycle's begun. The minimum is behind us now.
Mm-hmm. Okay. There's a relatively new thread in the Eric Dollard section in energeticforum.com, which is where the official Eric Dollard forum is. And in there, maybe a month and a half ago or something, Griffin Brock had posted a new electrodynamic seismic forecasting thread where he was sharing some of his work in a very simple electrical pickup system to kind of see the activity from the Earth and seeing how that matches with actual earthquakes. And then more recently, I'm gonna unmute you for a second here, Griffin. Griffin, can you hear me okay?
Yes, I can hear you.
You there? Okay. So recently you had communicated with Eric about some type of small three-phase system, and there was a new post in Energetic Forum, and it's called, let's see, Physical Model Representation of Electrical Distribution System, and that's inside the Eric Dollard official forum. And anybody can find that once we get the this video on YouTube and everything. I'll have links, and I'll send out the links directly to the mailing list so people can go straight there. And I do want to remind everybody that any of the attachments in Energetic Forum, you do have to be logged in order to download those. It's free to join. You just go to energeticforum.com, and at the top right, you'll see a login section, and there's a little drop-down part where you can register. And once you register, email Simon at help@emediapress.com with your username and email that you use to register, and he'll approve your account right away. And that way you can see a lot of the stuff inside the forum. You can download the attachments and so forth. So what is this about that you were communicating with Eric about this small little system that kind of looks like a small model of like a utility, three-phase utility transformer pole kind of setup?
Okay, well, this project goes back actually about a month or so, give or take. And this is a small tabletop model in the works that shows that actually simulates a small three-phase generating end connected to distribution transformers, and is then connected to a lumped element circuit or an analog computer in a three-phase system. And this will represent a long distance. We'll calculate the distance soon of a distribution line. And then this is then connected to a residential or step-down set of transformers, and is therefore connected to a load. Now, this model will help to analyze the different transformer connections and how their behaviors act with different loads, specifically nonlinear loads. And the loads in question are really small pilot lamps and motors and what have you. Now, this model is using somewhat scale telephone poles and 60-cycle transformers as the distribution transformers, and these transformers are single-phase. And in order to get them to three-phase, we use 3 of them and connect them in the transformer connections that we wish. And then right now I'm working out the mathematical considerations of how the lumped network will work out. And so far in my latest post, I show 2 pages of a possible setup. Now, given that this generator is unfortunately producing 90 cycles, that's going to be a problem, but I'm going to work my way around that.
Mm-hmm. So, Eric, do you have any comments on that? Because I think you went in there and you might have seen the pictures and.
Well, that's what I'm trying to go to that now. Yeah, the big problem in this is trying to find a very small 3-phase generator that will put out 60 cycles, and I don't know if one's been found yet or not, but that seems to be a big holdup.
Well, yesterday in the mail I received 2 small 3-phase motors. They have 16 poles. It's not very favorable, but that's what I could find. And the output is about 10 volts at 2 milliamperes. And this is run at about 675 RPM, producing roughly 90 cycles. And when I hook up the entire setup in a crude fashion with a delta Y delta connection, I'm able to light a small 6-volt pilot lamp on the other end.
Okay, so now these motors, do they have DC windings for excitation or just regular motors?
Just regular motors. I could not find a single one with an excitation.
Oh, okay, load. So they're not really generators then. So you're not getting the power out of them that you could. Mm-hmm. So we're still stuck with the problem is we need a tiny little 3-phase generator, and those things really only exist in servo systems. We tried a control transformer, and that seemed to have too high of an internal impedance. Plus, the servo control transformers and Celsons and what have you are not made to be spun; they're positions, so they're not. They wouldn't really work well for the 1800 RPM. Have a long life, so that's kind of holding everything up. You can't use electronics because the power flow has got to go back both ways. And you can't use inverters or car alternators because they're not sinusoidal. So this is, I don't know how we're going to get around this, but something might be cycles. What's that now?
Would it be possible, I thought about it yesterday, to use a 3-phase low-pass filter in conjunction with the 90 cycles?
Well, yeah, you could do that with the car alternators. You could have that would be one way to do it, is they're kind of higher frequency. They like to operate around 400 cycles a second. I think you can get them down lower than that. Mm-hmm. But the frequency is not really that important. The frequency is basically just there to make sure that the transformers will not saturate or what have you. So that was the problem we were having with the 20 cycles, is the transformers just wouldn't work on the lower frequency. They couldn't develop enough EMF. But we couldn't spin the Celson any faster because it wasn't designed to spin. Mm-hmm. So I don't know. This is an obstacle, in doing this kind of scientific stuff, is trying to find the necessary components. But yeah, if you had a 3-phase highly resonant circuit, then even with the control transformer, it might be possible then to get some substantial energy sinusoidal out of it. That was I haven't heard from you in a while, so that's something that I was thinking about at the time. The next step with the control transformer is to if it's going to operate at 20 cycles, is to find the right capacitor to resonate the windings at 20 cycles. That would probably greatly boost its efficiency.
Mm-hmm. Because the impedance of the control transformer, yesterday I calculated it was about 1,100 ohms compared to
it's way too high.
Small motors, which is only 3 ohms. So that's a huge difference. And the control transformer...
Now, with the motors, if you can find the right size capacitor and run them as induction generators, then you'll probably be okay. So the thing to do is to find the capacitor that will resonate with the motor when it's spinning at the 60 cycles. Then it becomes self-exciting, and you won't be able to control the voltage, but you'll have it.
Mm-hmm.
So that's probably your way out. That's what if you want to use an induction motor as a generator, you find the right capacitor to connect it to self-excite it, and then it will work as an alternator. But typically, in parallel with a synchronous machine, to hold the frequency and the potential. But in this situation, that might not be critical, because you're just after phase difference in EMF.
Yes, because at 60 cycles, the required rotation is 450. But even then, the DC motors, they barely spin the generator, and the generator in turn barely produces anything. So the most I could do is 90 cycles, and that's 675 RPM. And the power factor of the overall setup, I found it to be 95%.
Yeah, you're going to have to put capacitors in there at some point to keep everything excited.
Mm-hmm. And then since I have, for the lumped element circuit, for the analog computer setup, I have a generous amount of 1.5 millihenry inductors, so I'm using that. And then I found that a resistance of, I can't name it off the top of my head right. 562 ohms will work.
Okay.
And that's after the pages of math. So
and that gives you a 10% voltage drop.
Exactly.
Okay. Mm-hmm. So I can't find the energetic form thing here. I can get my channel, but it won't do any others, so I can't look at this stuff apparently.
Oh. Okay.
Yeah, I'll put a link up on the private page, Eric.
Okay.
Because I've seen low-pass filters for three-phase setups.
Well, in this case, you don't want a low-pass filter. You want a resonance.
Okay.
Okay. Let's see. I got some crazy drawing of me.
I didn't put the link up yet. It's my friend in Japan who drew a Japanese comic portrait of you.
I don't see anything on here.
I didn't put it up yet.
Some of the stuff needs to be deleted because it's accumulating.
Yeah.
So
no, I'm putting the link
there.
up right now. It's not. Yeah, because I didn't put it up there yet.
Okay.
Okay, if you refresh it, it should be there.
Okay. So we've been experimenting with the Bach rather heavily here. So I've been using, because I don't have the paper yet, I've been using what's on the screen best I can with 1.5 eyes.
Yeah, and Eric, if you're not able to log into Energetic Forum, I think you had a problem before, you won't be able to see those attachments. I'll have to pull those out later.
I can see them little.
Oh, yeah, so if you click on it, you should get a big version.
Go. That looks pretty good. Kind of looks like one of those, one of the pictures out of the presentation. What'd you do? Make the insulators?
Yeah, I did. I had went to the hardware. Found some small wooden pieces, nail polished them with I have some old insulators, so I matched the color. And then I made insulator poles, the sockets, and drilled some holes, made some cross arms. And I tried to replicate a deck setup as best as I could, but since these are massive transformers, and it's not identical. So And then for the...
So what's the total height?
The height is about 10 inches or so.
Okay. Yeah, so basically you made those little insulators yourself.
Yes.
Okay. It looked pretty realistic.
And then I'll make some distribution poles, maybe 4 of them, because I don't want it to make it too long, and then that'll connect to the element circuit in the middle.
Right.
And so it's a clear representation.
Yeah, and then you'll also have to build your little capacitor banks.
Mm-hmm. I'll make that too.
Yeah.
Power factor correction capacitors.
Right. You got to make sure that you got enough capacitors to keep all the iron magnetized.
Mm-hmm. Okay, I'll do that. I'll go to Apex and find some capacitors. Mm-hmm. I couldn't find any 3-phase motors or anything of the sort at Apex. They're pretty much out of stock.
Yeah. Well, there's not I've seen the surplus business go dry in L.A. There's not really a source of a lot of that stuff anymore.
Mm-hmm.
It's all gone. It's all digital. Nothing real.
Yep. It's all fake.
Yep.
All right. Well, you made a... Yeah, go ahead.
Oh, no, go ahead, Aaron.
No, I'm just thinking maybe we can see if anybody has any questions about any of... if anybody did happen to come across your new post on Energetic Forum. I haven't had time to announce that yet since you sent it to me, so most people might not know it's there, but we'll definitely post a link to that in the video, and like I mentioned, I'll send it out to the newsletters. But we can see if anybody has any questions for any of Eric's past presentations, anything related to any of the electrical engineering work that's, as part of any of the presentations or and we're going to stay out of the conspiracy theory stuff and all that. Let's just keep it to, relevant engineering and any of the projects that Eric has been involved in. And so if anybody does have a question, hit 5*, and that will put a little symbol up by your number, and I can unmute you, and then you can ask your question. It could be anything Tesla related or not, just as long as it is related to a lot of the stuff that Eric has posted over the years. Eric, I wanted to mention that yesterday I was at the shop with Jeff, and the prototype Oscillation Transformer. So for anybody who doesn't know, Lakhovsky multi-wave oscillator is a machine built in the early 1900s, which is kind of like this high voltage Tesla coil type of arrangement with these antennas that you sit between. And I'm not going to discuss any claims or anything other than the fact that the one we manufacture is the most efficient one in the world, and that it is an accurate representation of what George Lakhovsky was doing. Eric had developed an oscillation transformer that can use the exact same pulse modulator to run it in a balanced mode, because the Lakhovsky one is a very lopsided type of arrangement, which seems to be very intentional, but in any case, that's not how, for example, Tesla would do it, or Eric would. And Jeff worked on an oscillation transformer to do the balanced method, where you can stick the fluorescent tube in between the antennas, and right in the middle there's a black spot that appears right in the middle of the tube, which I guess you could say is the area of counter space, where it goes into a different dimension, I guess, for simple terms. And Jeff was putting the bulb, it was drawing sparks maybe, I don't know, 4, 5, 6 inches, and he grabbed one tube and brought it over, and from the antenna there was a spark that was, I don't know, maybe about 7 or 8 inches that jumped out and got him in the arm. Just glad he didn't throw the I'm glad he didn't throw the tube across the wall and smash it. But it's running really good.
That's about the best that you got out of it yet, isn't it?
Yeah, I took some video, and I'm gonna I'll probably keep the Yeah, I'll keep that one as part of a blooper reel. I might not put that in YouTube, but I'll put that on your private page. You can see the whole thing. And but yeah, we'll use that video so people who have the MWO can see the oscillation transformer. So anybody that's familiar with Eric Dollard's experiments with the cosmic induction generator, which is based on principles from Wilhelm Reich's book, Cosmic Superimposition, this is where Eric was getting all kinds of unusual plasma formations inside of a bulb in between two, special Tesla coil type of arrangements. This is essentially what that is. Kind of at a different level. It's not, it's not optimal the way Eric did it with the large diameter coils that are very narrow. These are with long coils with a small diameter. But nevertheless, if anybody wants a system that's super tuned for doing this, that is possible to do with the Lakhovsky MWO Pulse Modulator. So that'll be like an add-on. Anybody who has one can get one of those, plug it right in, and it'll already be tuned. So yeah, I'll post that video for you. I think you'll enjoy that one. So yeah, if anybody has any questions about anything, there's countless videos and interviews and a lot of presentations over the years from Eric. So if you have any questions, hit 5-star, and he'll be happy to answer those for you. And so in the meantime, I want to remind everybody, ericpdollard.com is Eric's website, and if you can go there to the donate link, and if you want to support this kind of work that Eric is involved in, you can donate by PayPal or through the mail with a check or money order, and all donations are greatly appreciated, and that's what keeps the operation running. And so, okay, we got a question. If your area code is, let's see, 250, I'm going to unmute you right now. Go ahead and state your name, where you're from, and go ahead and ask your question.
Yeah, hi, I think that's me. My name's Wayne.
Yep.
I'm from Victoria, Canada. It's just really interesting timing because I was just binge watching Eric's presentations yesterday on YouTube. So this is really neat to be able to say hi and pose a question.
Great.
Okay. So I've been doing a fair bit of experiments with gravitational research, gravity control, propulsion, that kind of stuff. So I was doing a lot of experiments with pulse high voltage and that sort of thing. And so what I found out was experienced was this, what I believe you call impulse electricity. So I was able to move objects, paper, rubber, metal, with these impulses. And I just found that really, really intriguing. And I could actually feel it in my hand, like these pressure waves coming off of this, really just any sort of electrode that was pulsed with. I've been using a Wimshurst machine, and every time there's a spark discharge, I feel this pressure wave go through my hand. And so I remember some of the things. I'm familiar with your work. I've been listening on and off over the years. So I was just trying to dig a little deeper into this because it was really puzzling to me. And so what my question is do you think there's potential for this sort of thing to be applied to a reactionless type of propulsion?
Well, possibly, but that's kind of out of my field.
Okay.
But obviously, a lot of people have worked on that and have had results, but it seems like any time you start getting into that, you also end up getting in trouble. So there seems to be some element involved that doesn't like this stuff when it gets past a certain point, which would indicate that some kind of secret project had stumbled across this, and you don't want to accidentally rediscover any secrets. That seems to be what's going on, but so it's actually best not to, tell too many people or get too involved in it, and just kind of do what you're doing for your own interest, and then you won't get in trouble.
Yeah. Okay. Okay. Do you have any thoughts on
but
how...
thus far, gravity is not an engineering subject, so I can't say anything.
No, there isn't any engineering science around it, really.
There's nothing engineerable, and there's a lot of speculation and what have you. But the shockwave thing is something that Tesla was always talking about. And then there are some videos of where I was using impulse currents to light incandescent bulbs, and the bulbs radiated these shock waves. I don't know if you saw those or not.
Right. Yeah, I did. And I've actually experienced some of that too. It's sort of an attractive. It almost feels like a magnetic pole, like if a little piece of metal against a light bulb. So
you're using static electricity. You're not using like.
I was using
pulses?
static. I was also using like I use a neon transformer and through a
Yeah, so you're always going to get attraction and repulsion forces because that's just the way things work because of the lines of force. So anytime you have two terminals at a different potential, they want to pull together. If they're the same potential, they want to pull apart. But the shock wave is something different. That would only occur when you're doing a discharge, like when there's a spark. So is that what you're getting, only when there's a spark, then you get the shock wave?
Yeah, it looks like his call dropped out. And anyway, we'll bring him back on. Okay, if anybody has any questions, hit 5-star, and I'll go ahead and unmute you. Okay, if your area code is 480, go ahead and say your name, where you're from, and go ahead and ask your question.
Hi there. My name is Ryan. I'm a first-time caller. I'm really excited to be a part of this. Eric, I've read quite a bit of your work, and I wanted to, just in general, I wanted to talk about magnetic amplifiers. I've been working on sort of an invention for a new type of geometry for a magnetic amplifier core, and I was wondering if you had any just general comments about their properties and utility that might be of interest to me. Thanks.
Well, they can get pretty involved. I know there was a time when this was kind of popular on the energetic forum. I posted all kinds of diagrams of, I think they were out of patents mostly, really exotic magnetic amplifier configurations. So it basically starts with Ernst Alexanderson. He was the one that invented the magnetic amplifier. So I think if you go through the patents, you'll find all kinds of complicated core configurations. But there's also YouTube videos where you can see that people have built magnetic amplifiers just using a pair of like little toy 6-volt transformers. So that's probably a good way to start. I don't know what exactly is it you're trying to do with the magnetic amplifier.
Well, I had a couple of ideas. One of them, which I guess might be most relevant to you, would be I read that I think it was back in 2018 that Oak Ridge National Lab got a grant, $5.5 million grant to develop magnetic amplifiers that could be used as power flow controllers for the electrical grid. And I was
normally all that stuff is plunging. Normally, all of that is plunging into the abyss of solid state and digital. For them, at that late a date, to be starting something prehistoric.
Yeah. That's. I was surprised also because that is literally the only modern on-the-books research on magnetic amplifiers that I could find.
Well, there really doesn't need to be any research because that technology was thoroughly developed by General Electric through Steinmetz and Heaviside, but I guess...
Yeah, but since the 50s, there have been some interesting leaps in material science up to and including electrical steel and things even more exotic than that, like met glass.
Well, one thing that was discovered when I had, got people interested in this and experimenting, what have you, again, is it seems like all of the necessary core material to build magnetic amplifiers had been withdrawn. And then I had designed an experiment, a scientific experiment with the magnetic amplifier to see if it was possible to synthesize energy out of the parameter variation. But at any rate, I never could find anybody to pick up on that, and so that turned into a dead horse. But that was my main interest, was to parametrically generate an EMF and then see if the power flow that you could derive from that EMF defied the law of conservation of energy from what you were putting into the thing. I think Aaron has most of the parts, but nobody's interested in following up on it, so that's in the corrals of dead horse farms now.
I suppose there's...
maybe you can pick up on that. So it requires a vacuum tube modulator that I designed, but I don't know, where any of the circuits are or where anything is, or I've dropped it. So, and I don't have the means to do any of that stuff where I'm at now. So basically, I'm not involved in that anymore. But I wrote all of it up somewhere. I wrote it all up by diagrams, and I had a guy over in San Luis Obispo that was supposed to be the guy to do this stuff, and he built a lot of it, and then he ended up embezzling us for about $5,000, and that was the end of that.
That's a shame.
Well, it's typical. It's the story of my life.
Whatever happened to Chris Carson? I was very interested in that rotary electrostatic device that he built.
Well, that's actually...
Continuously rotating capacitor?
That's something that I have a renewed interest in now. It's called the Trump motor, developed by Trump's uncle. It's an electrostatic motor that uses no magnetism. And it's the perfect companion to the Tesla turbine as electrical generating device. So it's kind of, a lot of it is outside my area of expertise, but at any rate, Chris Carson and I were, working on this stuff back when he was still alive. And that apparatus got saved, and Aaron has it now. So that'll enable the first experiments in this when I get into a position where I'm not busy putting these presentations together, which right now is occupying all my time. I can't diverge into any side stuff, but there are some people that are interested in supporting that project. So I would imagine if we survive this democratic terrorist attack, that will be a project that will occur later on in the year.
Well, thanks for that, Eric.
Okay.
I suppose there's just one other thing I wanted to mention briefly that might be of passing interest to you or to someone out there who's listening. I was inspired by the geometric configuration that's used in the Muller dynamo. Bill Muller from Canada, he would use an odd-even configuration where you have an even amount of, let's say, neodymium magnets on a rotor and an odd amount of pairs that's always one less, evenly spaced on each side of the rotor. I was inspired by that, and I sort of conceived of a high-speed rotary brake that would sort of use the same concept, because I realized that when you do that, when you have that sort of asymmetry, you multiply the terms. You multiply the number of rotor elements by the number of stator element pairs. And that can allow you to get brake rates that are way faster than anything I've read about as far as what we normally call a synchronous rotary brake. So I thought that might be of interest to you. Thanks.
Yeah.
Okay, Kelly. Okay, go ahead, Kelly.
Hello?
Yes, yep, you're on.
Yes, it's Kelly calling from Santa Cruz.
Yep, go ahead.
I had a question about the Visor algebra, especially the imaginary use the four roots of one, the imaginary for space, and how that connects with Planck's constant. I noticed you use Planck's constant in some of your stuff.
You'll have to translate that, Aaron. I couldn't understand the silly phone.
Yeah, are you on speakerphone or something, Kelly? Could you get
I'll
the
go over
microphone a
again.
little bit closer?
And I was looking through your book, The Common Language for Electrical Engineering.
Okay.
And there's a discussion about space and the four roots of one.
Right.
And then I noticed in another place, and I don't know if this connects up with the Planck's constant as how it's used in your framework.
Yeah, that's not directly related to the Versor operators. That's
okay.
A dimensional thing. So I'm developing in that book the idea of an electrical unit called the Planck. And it's, the reason I call it the Planck is because Max Planck, in his work, developed that particular dimensionality, which physicists call energy time. But actually, Steinmetz would call it induction. So I'm kind of laying all that out. That's like a fundamental part of the final stages of electrical theory. And I'll be getting into that in my Heaviside presentation.
Oh, good.
So I think what's in the Lone Pine writings is basically self-explanatory. So I couldn't really, I couldn't say anything more than what I've already said in there.
Okay. You're having volume 3 of the Versor algebra coming out soon?
That's kind of hard to say. So it's intended. That particular presentation I'm working on now, it's just in the primordial state, and then I have some serious distractions in that I've got some complications with the car, and I've got to work on that and what have you. So I had to cancel some other projects to make this presentation worthwhile. I was just going to half-ass it and preform it, but once I started to get into it, and I've been wanting to get the relationship between the music of Bach and polyphase power, which has interested me all the way back into the day when I first learned about Bach when I was 19 years old. So I'm finally at the point now that I'm going to connect the music and the Versor algebra together. In fact, it's sitting in front of me on the computer screen right now. So that got me really interested in it again. And the 2 volumes of Versor algebra will basically be reference books for this presentation, because I'm not going to waste a lot of time in proving, and deriving all the equations. I want to get right down to business. So these 2 presentations are going to be quite different. And there's not going to be 800 or 900 slides. There's only going to be like about 80. And I'm going to spend a lot more time on each slide. And so it's not going to be, like 100 cc's of LSD shot into your arm and then 6-hour blaze. This one's going to be slow and methodical. And that'll make it easier for people to understand stuff.
I look forward to seeing that come out.
Yeah, I'll be glad after it's over, because let me tell you, these things are a workout.
I really appreciate it.
It's quite gratifying because I'm discovering all kinds of new stuff and I'm experimenting, and so at any rate, I'm quite inspired out of these things, and no one has ever done any of this before. This is all.
Oh no, I understand.
This is, electrical theory has been taken to its final completion.
Do you still believe that none of this is in this kind of theory or whatever has been developed in the black world, so to speak, the classified world?
I didn't get all that, but
I'm saying that. Do you think a lot of this theoretical work has been done in classified government programs or anything?
Well, it's generalized stuff, so it's not really, it's not specifically orientated towards this or that or whatever. It's basically, it's just finalizing the work of Steinmetz and Heaviside.
I just thought maybe there might be some connection with technology that isn't available to the public. The old rumor.
Yeah, I try not to get in that position.
Yeah, for good reason. Well, thank you.
My work is significant. It's abstract enough that I don't expect that kind of trouble. And I live in that neighborhood, and the terms of all this stuff are pretty well understood. So I don't have those kind of problems. The problems for me are made by the people that are making problems for all of us right now.
Oh, I hear that. I can't believe it's going down the way it is.
Well, wait till the second wave.
Well, that's what I actually fear is that the rumor is we have a nano component to this that hasn't been brought out at all very much.
Yeah, well, at any rate, I don't want to get too much in the conspiracy thing right now, but
have you? There's a website or a YouTube channel called Fractal Woman. Have you guys heard about that? She's doing work on Steinmetz. Fractal Woman. She has a bunch of clips on
I've seen all that. What's his name? Ken Wheeler has started off this kind of Steinmetz craze. So a lot of people are, looking in the direction of Steinmetz, but they're not. They're kind of off on their own thing, which is fine and dandy. It's not really doing much for me, but it gets off into kind of a speculative thing and what have you. And there's a lot of it, and it's. I'm not discouraging it, but it's not anything that's useful to engineers.
No, you have to be practical, otherwise you get lost in your head.
Yeah, it's going kind of a metaphysical route.
Okay, well, I look forward to your.
Also, I have no objection to. That's after my presentation. The power of the ether. You couldn't get much more metaphysical than that. And kind of
definitely.
Three-phase. The metaphysics is coming back in with the numerology of Pythagoras, which is kind of the fundamental rule for everything I work on, but it's got to be able to. I got to see it on the switchboard.
Well, would you consider yourself a Neo-Pythagorean?
Technically, I'm a Pythagorean.
Okay, that's good to hear. Well, thank you again, and good luck with your projects.
Okay, thank you.
Bye.
Thanks, Kelly. Okay, if your area code is 707, go ahead and say your name, where you're from, and go ahead and ask your questions.
Hello, folks. My name is Ken. I live in Northern California. I'm a computer system engineer by training, but I've been very interested in all sorts of kind of advanced and kind of say non-conventional physics, electrical work, and all this kind of stuff for many years. Eric, certainly I've been aware of your work for, I guess probably about 20 years, and at various points in life kind of jumped on in and really tried to follow it. I got laid up by some really serious medical shit for about the last 6 years, and so now I'm kind of getting my head out and trying to reacquaint myself with various things. My question really is, in one of your presentations, I know it was a very earlier one, like theory of electricity kind of thing, you had some folks coming in and talking about the biological effects of combinations of longitudinal electricity, I guess the impulse, and a number of other different things. And I've known of all sorts of different parameters that affect, you know, the effects of biological health, both in the healing of disease, and I'm certainly aware of the Rife generators you have. But I guess my question really is, what specifically, when you start looking at the interaction of the field of electromagnetic, electromotive, electrolongitudinal, whatever you want to call it, energy and biology, what are the fundamental things that you see that really allow living systems to benefit from those field effects, if that's a simple question?
Well, that's a good question, but I don't see anybody doing the science to answer the question.
Do you have a perspective on it in terms of just how you see?
I have not been able to do those experiments, and I don't have any biological facilities right now that are readily. I do have potential facilities available, but conditions do not allow for me to use that. I try to encourage other people, because with this MWO endeavor, we need some kind of hard scientific facts on, you know, what is it that's working, what is it that, you know, what's going on scientifically, not
right.
just, you know, that somebody claims this and somebody claims that, and somebody's, you know, all of a sudden, you know, talks to the space people and comes back and says, oh, no, you have to ground this, or, you know, you have to divide by pi or multiply by pi. Just muck it all up into a bunch of Looney Tunes, and everybody's claims, oh, this and whatever. Well, that doesn't work. I can't engineer something unless, you know, I know, you know, that so many this or that results in this disease or whatever, you know. People just aren't willing to do that.
Right.
Mostly because, you know, the general public can't. There is no science anymore, even though they like to tout that word, you know, with this new carnival that we're going through of follow the science, follow the science. Well, that's actually a meaningless term because science is constantly changing. So science is a thing of the past. Now it's dictates. And there's no money for any of this stuff to do with clinical experiments and find out, you know, how long, how much power, what does it do, what does it not do, what does it do this way, what does it do that way. So I can't really answer a lot of questions.
Right.
I can't do that stuff myself. I mean, I've done, when I was studying biology, I did basic experiments that determined that none of the silly phone stuff is any good for us at all. And this 5G thing is absolutely outrageous. Not the 5G itself, which is a data plan, but the radio transmission of it at EHF, which is sounds hideous. Sounds like a weapon.
Right.
We're going to get all of it. So at any rate, nothing's going to stop it. The silly phone stuff as it is now and all the Wi-Fi, people have just completely wrecked their living environment with Wi-Fi, and they don't seem to worry about it. But then all of a sudden, they get into a big kissy about their smart meter. You know, so what can I say? You know.
Right.
It's your own fault that you're addicted to your device.
So is the MWO, did you guys design that more as kind of like an electrically experimental device where people can kind of experiment with fields and, Tesla coil energy transmission and this type of thing? Or was it, somewhere I got the idea that it's, whether it was...
Let me stop you right there.
Okay.
Yeah, let me stop you right there. Okay, so Eric designed the Pulse Modulator. It's the number one highest quality pulse modulator in the world for the Lakhovsky multi-wave oscillator.
Right.
And there's no discussion about medical claims, health, wellness. None of those words exist on the website. It is sold as a device which is an electrically correct replication of what George Lakhovsky was actually doing. And there's only about 3, possibly 4 companies in the world making them. One in Croatia, one in Russia, ours, and then there's one man in Michigan. But Peter Lindemann had that one line filter wasn't in the right place, and every time it turned on, it screwed up all the routers and anything wireless in the entire house, or any electrical stuff in the entire house. So, as I mentioned earlier, with the Oscillation Transformer being able to do those balanced type of experiments, there is one reference that I'll give you. I make no claims that this is, the MWO is going to do this, but obviously we have, enough reason to believe that it's worth our time to continue to make these, and it's, not just a curiosity or something. But there's a website called Multi-Wave Research. Users.
Your website?
No. The website is users.
Wait, you said multi-wave? Whoa, multi-wave research. That's the name of it.
That's the name of the website.
Okay.
But let me just give you the URL so you can go there and look at it yourself. Okay.
Yep.
Users.skynet, SKYNET, .be.
.ve is in Victor?
BE, Bravo Echo.
Okay, BE.
Yeah, users.skynet.be/Lakhovsky. Only the L is capitalized, all the rest of the letters are lowercase. LAKHOVSKY. Now on that website, those are the European engineers who reverse engineered some of the original Lakhovsky units that were found crated up. And so it wasn't until about 12 years ago that they did that, and until then, nobody really knew what the real schematic to Lakhovsky's machines were. It was all speculation. On that website, they do have that book, Good Luck on Building Your Own, but there's a link called Bioelectromagnetics, and they have a book called Biological Effects of Exposure to Multi-Wave Oscillator Fields. Yeah, and Eric, I don't know if I ever gave you a copy of that, or if you have that. That's the only thing that I can find where there's any type of recent research on the multi-wave oscillator and biology. So again, I'm not making any claims for the information in that. You can go there, you can download the free table of contents to look at it to see if you even want to buy that book. But that's the primary compilation that I know of that's probably going to answer most of your questions in relation to the multi-wave oscillator.
Awesome. No, I really appreciate it. No, I think that's terrific because, obviously, way back when in the 1800s, I'm sure that, there were lots of people experimenting with these various things. And, Eric, as you've so, repetitiously and succinctly said, it's like, what we got today is a far cry from, being a genuine scientific environment, which I am deeply troubled by, because I would very much like to start seeing things kind of getting back to basics in a very fundamental way. And if I can, I've got a couple other questions. Is it okay to toss those in and see if you have time for it?
Yeah.
The main thing, part of the area that I've been involved with is working with startup communities and, small groups of people that kind of want to create off-grid communities, not people up in the hills of Montana, but more what I would consider to be larger scale things when we're looking at Africa, South America, some of these things. And a lot of people, and of course they start bidding around for equipment, and they, get all the conventional, solar, wind, power generators, all this kind of stuff, and they generally, kind of have a tendency to want to go buy all of the things that's readily acceptable, not acceptable, available, sorry. And my question to you is, and I know you did a recent presentation on the troubles that you see within the current electrical environment with various transformers, switching things, not able to be able to handle, high voltage transients, and I think there was probably a number of other things, but those are some of the ones I retain. The question is that if we had an ability to kind of redesign, restart this whole frickin' system from scratch, would there be, I'm sure you'd have a laundry list about a mile frickin' long about different things you'd want to throw in there, but what would be some of the fundamental things that you would see should be engineered correctly from the start that we did not do? Does that make sense?
Yeah, the problem with this stuff is it's too digital, and it doesn't.
Yeah, I get
really
that.
It's not. Once you get into polyphase, it does not produce real polyphase. That's one of the big disasters with these photovoltaic powers. These big things that the power companies are building.
Right.
It's not three-phase. It's three single phases, and then in the idiocy of wiring all the transformers in a double Y connection, the harmonics are reinforced, and they become massive VLF radio jamming facilities, and they just contaminate the entire power grid with all of these stray harmonic currents, and now this stuff is all running around through the earth. The situation is if you go back to the days of Steinmetz, he developed an apparatus called the Rotary Converter. And what the Rotary Converter does is it's a motor and generator in the same core and the same windings. It spins, but there's no input or output shaft. It's one thing. And what this does is that it was normally used to convert AC to DC. It's highly efficient. Probably one of the most efficient machines ever constructed, typically 98% efficient in a typical power station application. And electric railway and electrochemical processing plants use these. This is before they had rectifiers.
Okay.
Like selenium or copper oxide or vacuum tubes or whatever. But these things are really powerful. They can get up to the 10 megawatt level. What needs to be done is these things need to be installed in these photovoltaic power stations because the rotating machine establishes the three-phase. And it regulates its ability to transfer energy in and out of the line with no solid-state devices or harmonics or any of those type of things. So as long as you got a power grid to synchronize to, they will convert DC into AC. And every one of these, every time that you have a power station that's polyphase, there has to be rotating equipment. Well, needless to say, that is not a software concept. And it'll never be done. But it has to be done. So now, let's say that I had some money to build a laboratory. Well, there's going to be a lot of Bell system equipment in here, and it all runs off of DC.
Right.
And I would have the typical magnetic amplifier regulated rectifiers to turn the AC and the DC to supply the power to the equipment and float the batteries. But I also want to be able to go from DC to AC so that if the public utility system takes a dump, and I don't particularly want any roaring generators or what have you, then I would use, because of my particular way of thinking, and the fact that I have a severe electromagnetic compatibility problem here, in that there's very, very low-level signals running around everywhere and radio equipment going, I would not use solid-state square wave, transient and generating inverters, or any of this stuff. I would use some type of rotary converter. In this case, it would probably be a dynamotor, which would operate at about 75% efficiency, and all the little softies would be going, ew, we got motors, we got machine, it makes noise, you got to have a human take care of it, and it's not digital or whatever. But I don't care. I would just have bigger batteries, because that way I would get a sine wave, and that way I would have no electromagnetic compatibility problems. That was the thing that I did with the MWO. The electromagnetic compatibility failure of all these MWO things running around has led me to call them an electromagnetic terrorist tool. If you want to wipe out your local this or that computers, or the store's cash registers or whatever, the original Lukoski MWO is the most effective device for doing that, particularly in the modern Y-connected power system. The modulator I designed, you can actually listen to your AM radio while the thing is running. Completely different idea.
Amazing.
So I go back to all the old technology. The original Bell System engineering principles was to stay away from electronics and keep it electrical. That way, you didn't have EMP problems. You didn't have harmonics. You didn't have burnouts or any of that type of stuff. It was all electrical orientated. Electronics was only where it was an absolute necessity, and it was typically vacuum tubes. And the vacuum tubes themselves didn't really do the amplifying. They just drew the energy into the system. It was the transformers that did the amplifying. And I've retained that principle, and that's what I'm using in my seismic amplifiers. Is a significant quantity of the gain and amplification is developed electrically. And what's nice about electrical amplification versus electronic amplification is there's much less noise, because you don't have electrons. Electrons are very noisy.
Yeah, I can see that.
So that's what I'm getting back into, with the power thing, getting back into your question with the power thing. And this has become an issue in, my friend and associate, is engineering and build these things in the occupied territories. And he's complaining that he can't use any of his radio equipment at all.
Yeah.
He can't use the public service band. He can't use the ham radio band. He can't listen to the CB, work the CB. He can't use the AM radio. And he sure in the hell can't use the VLF Earth signal receiver, because we're living in this roar of parasitic oscillations and harmonics in a utility grid that's designed to carry it into your house or carry it out of your house into your neighbor's house and turn the whole thing into a big roar of interference and transience. Brilliant. Software is really a brilliant philosophy. It's like a disease.
No, I get it. It's a completely unseen, hidden disease.
What I'm experiencing is mass psychosis.
Well, you know as well as I do is that the unnatural electrification of everything around us, part of my field is how it affects neurology, and it is severely, severely, severely depressing people's ability to have critical thinking skills. Now, that's a whole different topic, but the fact is it's highly related, because when I look at your work on space, counter space, and all the different other dimensionalities of energetic fields that basically have been written out of the books, I'm saying this is the thing that allows our cognitive capacity to not be limited. And when we start destroying that natural harmonic field where cognitive capacity exists, well, we get what we get. And, it's no surprise that you spend a lot of your time in areas where, you're not being saturated by that noise to the same level that a lot of other people are. And, I see that as, you know, obviously you doing the right thing, and also, you know, in your ability to bring out this information and really start talking about, for lack of a better words, you know, the physics of what electricity genuinely is, not to have the term physics be a negatively connotated word, but all of a sudden you're bringing light to these ununderstood terms, which kind of relates to, you know, years ago, 20 years ago, when I started reading Maxwell's original papers and I started looking at all this quaternion stuff, and I said, I couldn't even frickin' know what a quaternion was, right? And so I said, is this the thing where it all started? And then it all kind of got graded down from there. And, you know, I think that's a lot of the work that you're, you know, working on right now in terms of trying to, you know, bring out Heaviside's contribution to it. And, you know, history kind of gets rewritten in many ways. Did Heaviside enhance it? Did Heaviside reinterpret it? Did he demoralize it? You know, what was going on? But, you know, what I'm looking at is one of the things that you very accurately, presented. In the 1850s and 1800s, these guys had copper, brass, wood, and wire, and that was it. And they came on up with this amazing stuff. How in God's name did Maxwell come up with what he came up with in the 1850s? You know? So, you know, my hat goes off to them, it goes off to you, and I think that somehow or another, bringing these additional realities of the energetic field are essential. But, you know, as you well say, we're looking at many people out there that just couldn't give a rat's ass. You know, a few of us do. And so I'm just trying to support that.
Yeah, it gets to the point where then you become a threat.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
But, you know, the truth is truth.
That's how I kind of concluded my paper of the electrical utility in the digital age is, well, what's anybody going to do about it? Fight it.
Yeah.
That's what they'll do. No, they won't change for the better. They'll fight it. Because that's all they know how to do. That's all the bureaucratic mind knows how to do, is to say no, and oppose.
Yeah.
Bureaucrats are resistors.
Oh, they're total brakes.
Yeah.
All there is an off switch. There's no on switch.
Okay. It's a parasitic species that needs to be transported to another planet.
Yeah. We'll do our best.
But at any rate, so you know what my views are on it, and as far as any alternative power systems go, I mean, I'm totally for the centralized power system, but not the way it's going now.
Yeah.
So it doesn't matter, you know, that somebody's a little snowflake and they don't like to look at power lines. Well, I don't like looking at their utility vehicle. So what's the difference, you know? Power lines don't bother me. You're going to tell me how dangerous they are and whatever, but I don't know how many times I've watched, you know, the autumn flocking of blackbirds and seeing thousands of them, you know, with their feet clinging to the 12 kV power lines, generation after generation and after generation, yet they're all healthy and happy and shiny. You going to tell me that those power lines are bad for me? I'm not buying it. But they will become bad for everybody if this harmonic thing keeps getting out of control. And then that will affect birds with their feet clinging to the power lines.
People don't understand.
Where I see the birds all screwed up is in the McDonald's parking lot, where they're eating the crumbs of, the mutant food, and their feet are all deformed, and their beaks are crossed, and their feathers are all ruffled up, and that's what the population is eating. So maybe that's why people look so cute this day and age, and why their cars look like reptiles and demons and what have you, because that's their world. That's not the power lines.
No.
But the silly phones make up for it.
Yeah. Thank you, Aaron.
Okay. Yeah.
Okay. All right, Griffin. Go for it.
Okay.
We're gonna have to wrap this up here pretty quick because I got to attend to some stuff.
Yeah. Yeah. I'll make
go for it.
Eric, I think I've mentioned to you in the past that I recently completed an AM transmitter for a vacuum tube, and it's around 1 megacycles, the frequency, the transmitting frequency, and I'm experimenting with the Tesla mode of transmission. Now, I've built other coils, but they've landed on much lower frequencies, and recently I finished a coil that's a 50% length to diameter ratio of Teflon silver-coated wire, and it's just a secondary, no primary or anything, just very basic. And I'm wondering, on the grounding aspect, I have all the impedances matched. Is there a general rule of thumb for the distance covered compared to, in proportion to the amount of ground?
Well, the ground is the big complication, because you've got to get as close to 0 ohms as you can, and that's a lot of ground.
Yeah.
And any length of wire, has inductance, and that detunes the system. So the coil basically has to sit right on the ground terminal.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's how it's fitted right now.
Yeah, usually
and then
it's like 16 ground rods, and maybe a 30-foot wire going out to each of them in a big circle, and then 1 ground rod in the middle. That would be a good grounding system to do your experiments with. And then you can just series feed the coil. You don't need a primary for any of that. You just need a step-down transformer to go from the transmitter to the coil, because the input impedance to the coil is going to be really low. So the radios normally, transmitters, put out in the hundreds of ohms, but you got to step that down to the ones of ohms.
Okay. And then as far as distance goes, this transmitter is putting out about 5.8 watts. So relative to the ground that you described, the ground that I have right now is about 300 ohms. So is there a general proportionality with distance?
Yeah, it's not really. None of that really has anything to do with distance.
Okay.
But 300 ohms is way too high. You got to get down to 30.
Okay.
Otherwise, the coil's not going to, be able to work against anything. It'll just be flopping around.
Mhm. Okay.
But if that's all you got, it's probably better than nothing. But you got to get down to 30. And the other thing is, don't expect that you're going to go drive around, or whatever with, an AM radio and necessarily receive what you're transmitting, because you probably can with the old car radios, like I have in my car. They have a Tesla coil in them, but the newer stuff, I don't know what they're using, and the portable radios have a magnetic loop stick, and that probably will not pick up the Tesla transmitter at all. So basically, you need to have another coil present at that frequency somewhere else, even if it's a little tiny one in the old car radios. That will work, because they have a Tesla coil in them.
Mm-hmm. That's what I have as the receiver. I have an exact identical coil with the wire round in an opposite direction.
Well, there you go. That's the best, because then you're starting to go in the direction, like of the power transmission. So then the coupling will get real good. But the grounding is the hang-up.
Okay.
That is what makes it difficult, is to get the right ground. It's expensive. You have, like I say, you have to use probably like around 16 ground rods.
Because of the geometry in my backyard.
Yeah, and like a 30-foot diameter circle would be good, with wires all connecting to 1 ground rod in the center, and then put your coil on a little stand in the center.
Does the geometry matter that much? Because I'm more rectangular.
Well, you want it to be symmetrical. You want something, that's not cockeyed, so a circle will accomplish that.
Okay.
If you go out in the line, that's no good, because then you just, then you have a transmission network. You want, basically, you want a capacitor plate buried into the earth. Needless to say, the deck of a ship would be ideal.
Yeah. That's ideal.
Or if you were lucky enough to find an abandoned AM radio station ground network, then that would be a gift from Jesus.
Well, I was looking for some
then you
abandoned.
Probably be heard all around the world.
I was looking for some abandoned gas stations in my area. I found one to see if they had the old massive tanks buried in the bottom.
Yeah, but they went from metal to fiberglass epoxy type things, so they're not always metal anymore. But yeah, that would be another. Or that's what I got here. They're water tanks now that the fire department uses to test their pumps. So that's one of the reasons why I selected this building is I have the necessary ground. But I've gone through 2 rounds now of trying to get the transformers built, and then towards the end, everybody wigs out on me, and they get the transformers, and I get nothing. So I don't seem to be getting anywhere.
No. Okay, well, that sums up my question. Thank you.
Okay.
All right. Thanks, Griffin. Okay. Any final thoughts or anything, Eric, before we wrap it up? Or if anybody has any final questions, they can be brief. You can do maybe 1 or 2 quick ones. If not, then okay. Well, again, July 9th through 12th will be the 9th Annual Energy Science Technology Conference, where Eric will be delivering 2 presentations, one on Heaviside and one on Fortescue. And those will be recorded and made available as paid digital downloads. And it usually takes me, I don't know, about maybe, well, since it's a little bit shorter this year, might take about maybe 6-7 weeks for me to get all of them out. Usually we'll have Eric's as one of the first ones to be released, because that does help generate some funds to pay the bills. And go to ericpdollar.com and click on the donate link. And if there's anything you're able to contribute there by PayPal or through the mail by check or money order, would be greatly appreciated. And I guess other than that, we can call it a day. And did you want to schedule another live call for the next?
Yeah, we might as well keep on the cycle.
Okay, so that'd be the 27th. So we'll plan on doing another call June.
What is Saturday?
Yeah, June 27th is Saturday. It's 4 Saturdays from now. And we'll send out the announcements and everything. And this particular call, as soon as I can get to editing it, and I'll get that on YouTube, I'll send a link out to everybody. And so, okay, we'll go ahead and wrap it. All right. Thanks a lot, everybody. See you on the next call.
Thank you, guys.
Yeah.
Bye-bye.
Thanks, Eric.
Okay. Thanks a lot, everybody.
Thank you.
Bye.
Okay. Have a good weekend.
You too.
You too.
Bye.
Bye.